So the first strategy that we are going to talk about is the take the low road strategy. So even if the government, stakeholders, customers, employees, partners, communities and civil society are not too worried about the environmental footprint of a company, still it is reasonable for a company to at least obey the law. So even if nobody is too particular about environmental issues, it is still considered reasonable to not do illegal things. And expansion of such business could be limited. So one of the things that happens with businesses which follow this strategy of taking the low road is their expansion can be limited. Why? Because different regulations in different regions. So different regions might have different environmental regulations. When you are following a minimum possible regulation at a certain region, it is highly likely that at some other region you are going to come into the domain of an illegal activity. So this means that doing business with a stricter regulation would require the business to change too much of their business model. So whatever model they are working on, it has to change drastically if they have to do it in a region which has stricter environmental regulations. And when businesses try to make profits at the cost of environment, they try to take this strategy, or they try to work their business model according to this strategy of taking the low road, and they invest as little as possible to reduce their environmental impact. Negligence and lack of controls also come into the way of not doing more than what the law required, because since they are not too worried about environmental issues, there is a lot of negligence and lack of domain in that lack of control in that domain, and this comes in the way of not doing more than what the law requires, and which leads to a possibility where the business is highly likely to do something which can come into the category of breaking the law, because there is very little cushion, so to speak. So the companies find it easier to do the minimum required, but what the consequence of this strategy is that they are very close to breaking the law, since there is no cushion. So for example, if tomorrow some other law, a stricter law comes, it's very highly likely that the activities that a business was doing, the minimum possible activities that they were doing, now come into the domain of illegal activity. So in the previous lectures, we studied about environmental sensibility and level of compliance. So we can draw a graph by putting environmental sensibility here at the y-axis and taking level of compliance at the x-axis, where the activities which fall in this area are essentially illegal. Then we have minimal compliance with the law, and then as you progress in this direction, you will be leading in level of compliance. Similarly, on this axis, when some business lies here, it means that they have low environmental sensibility, and as you move upwards, the environmental sensibility becomes high. So with this strategy, if we try to put it on this 2D graph, we will see that take the low road, it is not essentially an illegal activity. So you are following the minimum required laws. So you have to take the low road strategy somewhere here, and environmental sensibility is low in this case, since the business is worried more about the profits and they are ready to compromise with certain environmental issues, and they are more worried about just obeying the law. Hence we can take the low road strategy here on this graph where we have environmental sensibility versus level of compliance. Thank you. I'll see you in the next lecture.